Your feet are a silent clock. And right now, while you are sitting there, that clock may be ticking toward a morning you will never forget. Around 4 a.m., when the body of a person with quiet, unnoticed high sugar is under the most stress. I want you to sit with that for a second. Because most people over 60 who eventually hear the word diabetes from their doctor were, just 18 months earlier, told everything was basically fine. Basically. That word has ended more good years of life than almost anything I have seen in 3 decades of practice. My name is Dr. James Calloway. My patients call me Dr. J. And I have spent 30 years watching this exact story unfold in exam rooms, in hospital corridors, and yes, in the intensive care unit at 4 in the morning. And I am telling you today, prediabetes is not a diagnosis. It is a warning shot. It is your body firing a flare into the sky, hoping somebody down here is finally paying attention. So let me put 3 questions in front of you. 3 questions I want you to hold in your mind for the next hour, because I promise you, I will answer every single one before we are done. First question. Why does a person with prediabetes often feel perfectly healthy? No pain, no warning, nothing, right up until the damage is already carved into the nerves and the small blood vessels. Why is the most dangerous stage of this disease the stage where you feel the best? Second question. Why do so many people over 70 who gave up sugar still watch their numbers climb month after month as if the sugar never left at all? What did they miss? Because they missed something, and it is not what the magazines told them. Third question. And this is the one that keeps me up at night. Why does the one medication doctors reach for first, Metformin, help millions of people, and yet, in a specific group of older patients, quietly drain something out of the body that no one warns them about? There is a nuance here that gets left out of the 2-minute appointment. And I am going to hand it to you. If protecting the years you have left matters to you, if you want to still be walking, still be sharp, still be independent at 80, then subscribe and hit that like button right now. Because what is coming up is the part your doctor rarely has time to explain in the room. Now, let me slow down and tell you what prediabetes actually is, because the picture in most people's heads is completely wrong. Most folks over 60 imagine sugar sitting in the blood like sugar sitting in a glass of tea, just floating there, harmless, waiting to be flushed out. That is not what happens. Here is the truth. Glucose is a sticky molecule. It is chemically sticky, and when there is too much of it circulating for too long, it starts attaching itself to proteins all over your body in a slow, silent process. Doctors have a word for the marker of this. It is called glycated hemoglobin, and on your lab sheet it shows up as A1C. When that number sits somewhere between 5.7 and 6.4, you are in the zone we call prediabetes. But that number, that little decimal, is not the story. The story is what the stickiness is doing. It is coating the inside of the tiniest blood vessels, the ones feeding your eyes, your kidneys, and, listen to me carefully, the long nerves that run all the way down to your feet. That is why I opened with your feet. They are the farthest outpost. They are the end of the supply line. And when the supply line starts to fail quietly, the feet are where it shows up first, as a tingle, a numbness, a strange coolness you blame on your socks. Here is the ambush. And it is a real ambush. In my practice, 9 out of 10 people in the pre-diabetic zone feel absolutely nothing. Nothing. No thirst yet, no fatigue yet, no dramatic symptom. And so they do nothing. Meanwhile, the clock keeps ticking. By the time the obvious symptoms arrive, the constant thirst, the getting up 3 times a night, the blurry vision, the process has often been running for years. I have had patients weep in my office, not because of the diagnosis itself, but because they said, "Dr. J, why did nobody tell me when it still could have been turned around?" So I am telling you now, while it can still be turned around. And here is the part I need you to hold on to, because it changes everything. Prediabetes is one of the few conditions in all of medicine that is genuinely, reliably reversible, not managed, reversed. I have watched patients in their late 60s and 70s walk their A1C from 6.2 back down into the safe range and stay there for years. It is not magic. There is no god of the pancreas doing you a favor. It is biology, cold, mechanical, beautiful biology. And once you understand the machine, you can operate the machine. But, and stay with me here, while you are sitting and listening to me explain this, there is a process happening inside your kidneys right now that gives an early warning most people ignore completely. It shows up as a dryness in the mouth, a thirst that water does not quite satisfy. Hold that thought. Because in a few minutes I'm going to tell you why that specific dryness is one of the most misread signals in the entire body, and why treating it wrong makes everything worse. First, I have to walk you into the machine itself. Let us talk about the pancreas and a hormone called insulin, because this is where the whole thing lives or dies. Insulin is a key. That is the simplest way I know to say it. When you eat, your sugar rises and your pancreas releases insulin, the key, which unlocks the doors of your cells so the sugar can go inside and be used for energy. Clean, elegant. In a young, healthy body, it happens thousands of times without a single complaint. Now here is what goes wrong with age, and this is the possession magnet you have to understand if you are 60, 70, or 80. Over the years, if the doors are constantly being flooded with sugar, the cells get tired of hearing the key. They stop answering. Doctors call this insulin resistance. The key still works, but the locks have gone stiff. So what does the pancreas do? It does what any desperate worker does. It makes more keys, more insulin, louder and louder, banging on the doors, and for a while, sometimes for years, it works. Your sugar looks almost normal because the pancreas is screaming to keep it there. This is the stage nobody sees. Your labs look basically fine. That word again. And then the pancreas gets exhausted. It has been running a marathon for a decade with no rest. The insulin-producing cells begin to wear out. Now the keys stop coming, and the sugar, which was being held down by brute force, finally floats up into the pre-diabetic range, and then past it. That is the moment your lab sheet finally shows the truth. But the truth had been building for years in the dark. So here is the trap, and it is the cruelest one in this whole disease. The pre-diabetic stage is not the beginning of the problem, it is the middle. By the time your A1C reads 5.7, your pancreas has often already been fighting silently for a long, long time. Which means every month you wait after seeing that number, you are asking an already tired organ to keep sprinting. This is the nuance the 2-minute appointment cannot deliver, and it is exactly why I refuse to give short appointments. I remember a man, I will call him Walter, 71 years old, a retired school teacher, which always stays with me because my own father taught school. Walter came in proud. He had cut out soda. He had cut out desserts. He told me, "Dr. J, I gave up sugar completely. I did the hard part." And his numbers had barely moved. He was almost angry about it. And I understood because he had done something genuinely difficult and gotten almost nothing for it. And this brings me to the thing I most need you to hear. The false comfort that traps millions. You think giving up sugar is enough. You think you close the door. But by cutting sweets alone, you may have simply opened a side door to a more cunning enemy. And that enemy is hiding in foods you have been told your whole life are healthy. Walter's downfall was not soda. It was something he ate every single morning believing it was the responsible choice. I am going to tell you exactly what it was. But to understand why it betrayed him, you first have to understand the difference between the sugar you can see and the sugar you cannot. And that is where your body is being fooled every single day. Let me explain what actually happened inside Walter, because it happens inside most people over 60 who quit sugar and stall out. Every single morning, Walter ate a large bowl of what the box called heart-healthy whole grain cereal. A glass of orange juice because his own doctor years ago told him it was natural vitamin C, and 2 slices of whole wheat toast with a little honey, because honey, he said, is natural. And he did all of this feeling righteous, feeling like a good patient. And that is the tragedy. He was being poisoned by his own good intentions. Here is the nuance nobody put in front of him. Your body does not care whether sugar arrives dressed as a candy bar or dressed as a piece of toast. Starch, the stuff in bread, cereal, rice, potatoes, crackers, is just sugar molecules holding hands. The moment it hits your saliva and your gut, those hands let go, and it floods your blood as glucose exactly like a spoonful of table sugar would. That heart-healthy bowl of cereal can spike an older person's blood sugar harder than a small candy. And the orange juice? You have taken 4 oranges, thrown away the fiber that would have slowed everything down, and drunk the pure sugar water that is left. This is the side door. This is the more cunning enemy. And almost nobody over 60 has been warned, because for 40 years we told an entire generation that fat was the villain and starch was the hero. We were wrong. I will say that plainly. My own colleagues were wrong, and it took us far too long to admit it. So when Walter told me he gave up sugar, what he had actually done was give up the visible sugar and double down on the invisible sugar. His pancreas was still being flooded every single morning before 9 a.m. And here is the cruel part. Because a starch spike does not taste sweet, he had no idea it was happening. His tongue said, "healthy." His pancreas said, "help." Now listen to me carefully, because this is a possession magnet moment for anyone over 70. As we age, 2 things happen at once that make this worse. First, our muscle mass shrinks, and muscle is the single biggest sink for blood sugar in the entire body. Less muscle means fewer places for that glucose to go. Second, the gut of an older person often processes these starches even faster. So the exact same bowl of cereal that a 30-year-old could handle hits a 75-year-old like a wave hitting a smaller boat. This is why the advice that works for the young quietly fails the old. And this is a piece of the puzzle your feet have been trying to tell you about this whole time. Now, I promised you I would come back to that dryness in the mouth that thirst water does not satisfy. Here is what is happening. And it is one of the most elegant and frightening tricks the body plays. When sugar climbs high enough, your kidneys, those 2 silent filters in your lower back, make a decision. They decide the blood has too much sugar, and they start dumping it into your urine to get rid of it. But sugar does not travel alone. It drags water out with it, so you urinate more, especially at night, and you lose water. Which is why you wake up parched at 3 or 4 in the morning reaching for a glass. Most people think, I'm just thirsty, I mustn't be drinking enough. No, your kidneys are bailing out a flooding boat, and the thirst is the boat taking on water. Treating it by simply drinking more and going back to sleep is like bailing without ever plugging the leak. Nighttime thirst in a person over 60 is not always about hydration. Sometimes it is your kidneys sending up a flare. And I have seen that flare ignored for years. Now we arrive at the medication, Metformin. And I want to be scrupulously fair here because this is where the internet goes insane and starts telling people to throw their pills in the trash. Do not do that. Metformin is one of the oldest, most studied, and frankly one of the most genuinely useful medications we have. It does something clever. It tells your liver to stop overproducing sugar at night, which is a real problem in prediabetes, and it makes your cells listen to insulin a little better. For millions of people, it has bought years of good health. I have prescribed it. I will prescribe it again. So hear me. I am not against it. But here is the silence, the thing that gets left out of the room. There is a nuance about metformin and older patients that deserves far more than the 30 seconds it usually gets, and it comes down to one vitamin, vitamin B12. Over years of use, metformin can quietly interfere with how your gut absorbs vitamin B12. And in a younger person with big reserves, that might not matter for a long time. But in a person over 70, B12 is the vitamin that protects your nerves and helps make your red blood cells. When it runs low, you get, listen closely, tingling in the hands and feet, numbness, unsteadiness on your feet, fatigue, and even memory fog. Now think about that. Think hard. Those are the exact same symptoms that early diabetic nerve damage causes. The exact same. So a patient on metformin develops tingling feet, and everyone in the room, sometimes even the doctor in a hurry, assumes it is the sugar attacking the nerves. when in some cases it is a treatable, correctable vitamin deficiency caused by the very pill meant to help. I nearly missed this once myself, early in my career, and it is one of those cases you do not forget. A woman in her late 70s on Metformin for years came in convinced her diabetes was destroying her feet and her mind was slipping. She was terrified she was losing her independence. Something in the pattern nagged at me. I checked her B12. It was on the floor. We corrected it. Within a couple of months, the tingling eased and the fog lifted. She had spent a year afraid she was falling apart, when part of it was a missing vitamin nobody had thought to check. My colleague, a sharp internist I trust completely, confirmed the pattern the moment I described it. He said he sees it more than anyone admits. So here is my message, and please do not twist it. Do not stop your metformin, but if you are over 70 and taking it, ask your doctor, out loud, make them write it down, to check your vitamin B12 level. That one sentence in an exam room can save your feet from being blamed for a crime the sugar did not commit. And that is the trap of modern medicine for the older patient. We are so busy watching the one big number that we stop watching the whole person. The pill fixes one thing and nudges another out of place, and unless someone is looking at the entire picture, the way my mother, a nurse, taught me to look at the entire person and not just the chart, the second problem hides in plain sight for years. Now here is where I have to stop you before you get too comfortable. Because you might be thinking, all right, Dr. J, I'll cut the hidden starches and check my B12. Problem solved. I wish it were that simple. It is not. Because there is one thing happening in the pre-diabetic body, one process that neither diet nor metformin fully addresses, and it is the thing that quietly determines whether you reverse this or slide forward into full diabetes. It has to do with when you eat and how you move, not just what you swallow, and it operates on a clock. Your body's own internal clock. Get this one wrong, and everything else you do only half works. Get it right, and the whole machine starts healing itself. This is the first of the 5 steps I promised you at the very start. And it is the step almost nobody talks about because it does not sell a product. Step 1. Timing. Your body runs on a clock. A real physical clock buried in your cells that scientists call your circadian rhythm. And that clock controls how well you handle sugar hour by hour. Here is the nuance almost nobody over 60 is told. Your body handles sugar best in the morning and worst at night. In the early evening, your insulin becomes lazier, your cells more resistant. So the exact same plate of food eaten at 7 in the morning and at 10 at night is 2 completely different events inside your bloodstream. That late bowl of ice cream, that midnight toast, that little snack before bed. In an older body, that is the worst possible timing you could choose. You are pouring sugar into the machine at the very hour the machine has clocked out for the night. So the first step costs you nothing and requires no pill. Stop eating roughly 3 hours before you lie down. Give your body a long, clean overnight window, 12, 13, 14 hours from your last bite at night to your first bite in the morning, where no food comes in and your liver and pancreas finally get to rest. I have watched patients do nothing but this. Change the timing, not even the food, and watch their morning sugars drift down within weeks. In my practice, I have seen it again and again. It is the quietest, cheapest medicine I know, and precisely because you cannot buy it in a bottle, almost no one profits from telling you. Now, step 2, and this one connects straight back to your feet, so listen. Movement, but not the movement you are imagining. I am not asking a 78-year-old to run marathons. I run them myself. But that is my knees problem, not yours. Here is the biology that will change how you think about your own legs. Your muscles are a sugar sponge, the largest one you have. When a muscle contracts, even gently, it opens a special back door that lets sugar rush in out of your blood without needing much insulin at all. Read that again. Movement lets your body clear sugar without asking your tired pancreas for help. That is the whole game. And here is the part that stuns people. It does not take much. A 10-minute walk after a meal, just 10 minutes, blunts the sugar spike from that meal dramatically. Not before the meal, after. When the sugar is rising, that is when your walking muscles act like a drain pulling it out of the blood before it can do damage. I tell my patients over 70, do not think of it as exercise. Think of it as taking out the trash after dinner. 3 short walks after 3 meals will do more for your blood sugar than 1 heroic hour at the gym that leaves you sitting the other 23. And your feet, those far outposts we started with, get their blood flow back in the bargain. The very act that lowers your sugar also feeds the nerves the sugar was starving. 1 motion, 2 rescues. But here is a closer. Here is the trap hiding inside the good news. Because I've watched patients hear movement helps, and then make a mistake that erases the benefit entirely. They walk their 10 minutes after breakfast, and then sit in the same chair for the next 9 hours straight. And that long, unbroken sitting does its own quiet damage. When you sit motionless for hours, those sugar sponge muscles go completely silent, and something in the lining of your blood vessels starts to stiffen. The fix is almost insultingly simple, and I will give it to you, but first, you need to understand why the chair is more dangerous after 70 than it ever was at 50, and it comes back to that shrinking muscle we talked about earlier. Alright, here is the fix, and here is why it matters more with age. Every 30 to 60 minutes that you are awake and sitting, stand up. That is it. Stand, walk to the kitchen, walk to the window, do it for 2 minutes, sit back down. These are not workouts. They are what I call muscle whispers. Tiny reminders to that sugar sponge to stay awake. In a younger body with plenty of muscle, 1 long sit is buffered. But after 70, when muscle is already scarce, every hour of stillness hits harder and the buffer is gone. So you break up the sitting. It sounds too small to matter. It is one of the most powerful things in this entire video, and it does not cost a cent. Now, step 3. And this is where I have to correct something the entire supermarket has lied to you about. The silence hiding right there on the food labels. Fiber. Not the boring word you have heard 1,000 times. I mean what it actually does, mechanically, inside you. Fiber is a net. When you eat sugar or starch alongside real fiber, the kind in vegetables, in beans, in the whole intact fruit rather than the juice, that fiber physically slows the release of sugar into your blood. It turns a flood into a trickle. Same sugar, completely different impact. This is why Walter's orange juice betrayed him, and a whole orange would not have. The fiber was thrown in the trash before it ever reached his glass. And here is a nuance I want to hand you that changes meals forever. The order you eat your food matters. I mean this literally. If you eat your vegetables and your protein first, and save the bread or potato for last, you flatten your sugar spike from that same meal, measurably. Same plate, same calories, different order. The vegetables lay down the net before the starch arrives. I have had patients change nothing but the order in which their fork moves across the plate and improve their numbers. It costs nothing. Nobody sells it, which is exactly why you have never heard it in a 30-second appointment. Now I need to slow down, because we are approaching something heavier, and I owe you honesty. Everything I have given you so far, the timing, the movement, the fiber, the food order, is real, and it works. And for many people in the pre-diabetic zone, it is genuinely enough to walk the numbers back down. I have seen it turn people around. But there is a 4th step and a 5th step, and the 5th one is the one that keeps people stuck no matter how perfectly they eat, because it has nothing to do with food at all. It is invisible. It is happening to you while you sleep, and to some of you it is happening right now as you sit and listen. It is quietly raising your blood sugar every single night, undoing your hard work in the dark, and it is the single most overlooked driver of high sugar in people over 60. Most doctors never even ask about it. I ask about it every time, and when I tell you what it is, I think you are going to recognize yourself. Step 4. Stress. And I know, the moment I say that word, half of you want to wave your hand and say, Dr. J, I'm retired. What stress? Stay with me, because this is not about your mood. This is about a hormone, and it is pure biology. When your body perceives stress, Any stress, financial worry, grief, loneliness, even the low hum of anxiety that so many people over 70 carry silently, your adrenal glands release cortisol. And cortisol does one very specific thing that matters here. It tells your liver to dump sugar into your blood. On purpose. Because in the ancient design, stress meant danger, and danger meant you needed fuel to run. But you are not running from a lion. You are sitting in your kitchen, worried, and your own body is pouring sugar into your veins with nowhere for it to go. Chronic worry in an older body is a slow, steady sugar drip you never signed up for. This is the nuance that stuns my patients. You can eat perfectly and still watch your morning sugar stay stubbornly high because you lay awake half the night with your mind spinning and your cortisol never came down. I had a woman, 68, widowed the year before, doing everything right on paper, and her numbers would not move. It was not her food. It was her grief, running a cortisol tap she could not feel. We did not fix that with a pill. We fixed part of it with a daily walk with a friend, a phone call she stopped avoiding, and 10 minutes of slow breathing before bed. Her sugar came down. The body and the heart are not two separate machines. Medicine is also the art of listening. That is the one thing I have never stopped believing. And that brings me to step 5, the invisible one, the one happening to some of you right now. Sleep. And specifically, the quality of your breathing while you sleep. Here is what almost no one over 60 is told. Poor sleep, and especially interrupted breathing at night, the kind where you snore heavily, stop breathing for a few seconds, and jolt awake without even knowing it, spikes your blood sugar directly. Every time your breathing stops and your body panics for oxygen, it releases stress hormones, and those hormones raise your sugar night after night. You wake up tired, foggy, thirsty. Remember that thirst. And you blame age. But your sugar was being driven up in the dark by a breathing problem you never knew you had. Listen to me carefully. If you snore loudly, if your spouse says you stop breathing at night, if you wake up unrefreshed no matter how long you were in bed, that is not just getting older. That is a treatable condition that may be quietly wrecking your blood sugar, your heart, and your mind. Ask your doctor about a sleep study. I have had patients treat their sleep and watch their morning sugars fall within weeks, having changed nothing about their diet at all. This is the step that keeps people stuck, because you cannot out-diet a problem that attacks you 8 hours a night while you are unconscious. Now let me pull all of this together, because here is the shocking truth I have been walking you toward the whole time. We treat prediabetes as if it were a sugar problem. It is not. It is an energy problem. Every one of the 5 steps, the timing, the movement, the fiber, the stress, the sleep, is really about one thing. Whether your body can move energy where it belongs, or whether that energy pools in your blood as sugar and turns sticky and starts coating the smallest vessels. The pill treats the number. These 5 steps treat the machine. And that is the difference between managing a slow decline and actually turning it around. In 30 years, I have become certain of this. The number on the lab sheet is the smoke. These 5 things are the fire. And now I want to bring you all the way back to where we started. Your feet. That biological clock I opened with. Because here is why I began there, and not with a lecture about sugar. Your feet are the farthest thing from your heart, the end of the supply line, the last stop for blood and nerve and oxygen. Which means they are the first place to show you the truth when the machine begins to fail, and the first place to reward you when it begins to heal. The tingling that fades, the warmth that comes back, the steadiness that returns. When you take these 5 steps, your feet will tell you it is working before any lab sheet does. That clock I said might stop. You are the one who winds it. You always were. So do not wait for the thirst, the numbness, the fog, the 4 a.m. panic. You are in the one window in this entire disease where the door still swings both ways. Prediabetes is not a sentence. It is a second chance wearing a frightening name. I have watched people in their 70s and 80s walk back through that door and stay well for years. There is no reason it cannot be you. If this gave you even one thing you did not have 20 minutes ago, do me a favor. subscribe, and hit that like button because the algorithm buries this kind of honest, unhurried medicine, and someone's mother or father needs to hear it before their 4 a.m. comes. I am Dr. J. Take care of the machine. It is the only one you get. I will see you in the next one.